All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, August 18th Working Group Component Centered Office Hours. This is our hour for folks to drop in and ask questions. I'm Mike, and I'll be in the channel. Hey, Amin, how are you?
Hey, good, and you?
Good. Same old, you know?
Yeah, cool. So I send you some work that I have been thinking uh, on the way to solve that problem, and
Yeah.
there are some alternatives on doing that.
Yeah, I just opened the links up, just started to look through them.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think those are good ideas. Like, did you notice that, like, do you have a preference across all those options?
Yes, I'm inclined in one of them.
So which one do
Uh,
you think is best right now?
I think for our condition right now, the best is the server strategic server, not the server side, the
The strategic
strategic
merge. Yeah.
merge patch. Not the server one, is the API machinery one.
The structured merge diff is the server side apply one, I think, and then the
Yeah.
strategic merge patch is an older patch mechanism, newer than JSON patch, older than structured merge diff. Um, that is a little bit more semantically appropriate for Kubernetes APIs. Like it'll do some, for example, if you some things in Kubernetes types are represented as lists, where each item in the list has a name, and it can merge that structure like a map, treating the name as a key. So there's a couple things that strategic merge patch does that like a JSON patch would miss, where it might just like replace the list wholesale and stuff like that. If
Okay.
I remember right, it's been a few years since I've read the. Um,
Uh, uh, I can share my screen and show you what's the idea behind the both POCs.
yeah, let's take a look here. Let me give you co-host. Okay.
Share screen. Can you see my browser?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the strategic patch. This is the JSON 6 something. So the first idea that I think is better, this approach, is to merge the YAML files before. And one way to do that is to ignore what kind and path an API version is the instance one. So we extract only the fields of data that we want and merge these on top of the shared configuration or shared YAML.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. That's what we want is to just merge them beforehand, and we can just require that they're like both the instance. We honestly, if we're doing a merge, we almost don't even need like a separate instance type. We can just let you specify the same type to both options, and then like we don't need to worry about like this is what came up in the GitHub discussion, right? Which was like, well, if we do it generically, like we don't need to have a separate type. Like we just let users decide like what they what they want to specify per instance and what they want to specify globally, and like all scenarios are work, right? And then the objection was, oh, but it might be really complicated to like come up with a generic merge. So like maybe for now we should just do this case by case thing. But then as you discovered, it's also really complicated to do the case by case thing. So um, now we're looking at a generic merge.
Exactly. The generic merge is easier than the case by case
Right.
one. Because
Right.
so this is the ugly way to do that. Like just because no one is merging two different kinds. This is something we are trying to do here, but that's where the complication, complex things come.
Right. So I'd say like we should just validate like, if maybe we'll let you specify dash dash config multiple times, or I think we should still have a separate instance config flag actually, just to like, because you only really need 2 layers, and that like makes it clear when somebody's reading an invocation which one is going to be the one on top. Then like we should just require that both files use the same API version and kind, so that we don't have any like conversion stuff to worry about before doing a merge, which like as you also discovered screws up any attempts to like properly filter out fields that weren't actually set.
Exactly, and that's when the things get uglier because we need to keep the track of which field was changed here, uh, because we need to copy this back in the end of the merge. So you need to bring the instance config with the same value of the shared config to keep both the same in the end of the merge. If you don't specify the instance config, it will always be defaulted, but you need to copy them after all the merge for them to be the same. So you need to, this is ugly.
This is still the JSON patch one, or this is the...
Yeah, this is the JSON patch one.
Okay.
I have a solution for the server side, but the tricky part is to keep tracking of the field that exists or not in the instance field and the instance YAML. So basically the idea is to decode and remove everything and then patch on top of the YAML, and then you have the final YAML here. While trying to unmarshal the file, we created this merge configuration and patch these things, and then load the correct instance, and then the patched YAML in the prox config, and life goes on. But the ugly part is still we need to keep track if the instance file was passed or the byte address was not inside the instance YAML. So if in both of these cases, we need to copy the shared to the instance yet to...
I see. So there's still like, it does like this patch strategy still isn't really like...
It does not cover all the cases.
Yeah. Let me just read through the code for a second on your...
Okay.
Which function is this?
Yeah. 503 on the server go.
Copy the shared in the instance. If we are, this is at the point that we're merging them before we unmarshal them though, right? So couldn't we merge them, like we just load the file bytes, right? Or whatever. We merge the JSON. I mean, I guess we have to like convert to JSON first, and maybe that's the tricky part. That's causing us to lose that information. Is that what's going on?
No, the JSON, the YAML to JSON is fine. That part is easy. There is some SIGs YAML that do this thing.
Because like in theory, right? Like if we just have like some bytes over here and some bytes over there, and we put one of them on top of the other, like, one of them, one, like, you have like some partially disjoint sets, right? And like the things that do intersect should just layer cleanly, and the things that don't are just like left as they were, right? And then you should just be able to, like, once you process that into a single set of bytes, then you unmarshal that and then run your defaulting on it. Why doesn't that? Why do we still need to do this copying?
Think about the case where you don't pass the instance file. So this merge will not merge anything, right? It will be the default shared that was. You are only passing
Why
dash
wouldn't we
dash
just?
config dash
Why
dash.
wouldn't? Why wouldn't we just skip doing the merge if you only pass one file?
Let's say we skip. Let's say we skip. So this does not happen. Okay.
Okay.
We have the prox config here and the instance config generated with the default values, right?
Sure.
Because we need at least to render the default values.
If you you shouldn't need to manually do that if all so for example if we only pass one file we don't have to do a merge, nothing like that. Like the traditional way to do it is just to use the universal decoder, like load it, right? And then that'll handle that, actually unmarshals it first, and then like into a zero valued struct, and then runs the defaulting after.
Okay.
So I don't think we have the same problems of like defaulting it before so that it's like in the right state. Because all that like sort of pre-defaulting stuff was so that we could have ways of determining whether fields were set or unset, right?
Yeah, but let's say we pass the bind address in the configuration YAML
Okay.
for
Okay.
the shader,
Okay.
and this is the default. So like this localhost is 0000. If we don't merge this back, they will have different values.
So what I'm saying is don't like take instance config out of kubelet server. Like it's not instance config as a name is not something that gets passed any deeper in the system past our like startup routine. And because if we're using the same kind for both, then like everything should just be merged into the kubelet configuration one before it goes any further.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So like at that point we don't have to like copy the state back over because it's like it should already be there.
Oh, sure. I'm just explaining the solution for this
Oh,
problem.
okay. Yeah, okay.
We agree that the dash dash config for both configurations is the
Yeah,
best.
yeah. Or it could be like two flags, and you start by reading them in, just the bytes in, not unmarshaling them yet, and then you do the merge, and then you unmarshal just into the kubelet configuration, and you only continue with the kubelet configuration. So you still get like the user experience that's clear. Like, okay, it's easy for me when I'm debugging this thing to see like this is the normal config, and this is the instance config that I know overrides the normal one. But then internally, like it just becomes one thing. So there's no confusion inside kubelet of like which one should I use. There's no copying back and forth to make sure they match and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah. I could be missing stuff too. So like if it turns out that there is an edge case here, like that's fine.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's the same idea with the other solution for the strategic merge patch, but I think this will be not necessary if you use the approach of the same kind of objects and merge them. But that's similar stuff. But
Yeah.
the good part of this is that we can keep track of the fields. Like the bind address was changed, so we know that.
Right. Bind addresses. Where does change fields come from? Hold on. String.
Oh, that is a list of shared fields here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what would this look like if we like? I guess if every field is a shared field if we use the same kind. So, or like shared versus duplicate. But basically every field is representable in every layer of the merge if we use the same kind, right? So we probably don't. probably simplify that. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the next thing I'd want to look at is like, can we like how much of this can we simplify if we do decide like, all right, we're gonna do dash dash config and dash dash instance config, but they're going to both use the same already existing kubelet configuration type to do the merge.
Dude, I would say it will be this line. Like this
Yeah,
line.
yeah. I think it gets pretty simple, right? So then I think like the um, does strategic merge patch require unmarshaled data? Like, does it work on the raw bytes, or does it work on like you have to have already like gotten your?
They both use YAML
They
or
both just use
convert
the
it to
YAML.
JSON. It's the same structure. Everyone is merging this stuff before doing the marshalling.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm marshalling.
That's perfect. Yeah, so I think let's do a quick prototype with like those assumptions, like the simplifying assumptions of like, all right, we're not going to do a separate type. Um, we're just going to let you like as a user like arbitrarily layer these on the command line and like see how simple we can get it where it still satisfies our requirements. And then I think the next step after that would be to just sort of double check with strategic merge patch that like it has the merge semantics we want for our API, like, and just think through like the use cases, right? So now that I'm letting you set your instance config to the same type, the sort of use cases that a user could use this for increase in number. So it's not just like I had this shared thing and now I want it to be instance specific, like a bind address. Now it's also like I have this local override I can set. So like, for example, somebody's using dynamic config, right? Maybe an admin says, well, I have control of the node and like, I want to like make sure this is like locked down to this setting. Something like that. So there's like more things I could see people starting to use it for. So I want to think through like, so today, right, like when we merge feature gates, we do a piecemeal merge of the flags into the config. So like you set some feature gates in your config, you could set different feature gates in the flags and they all get combined. And the flags, if you set the same one in flags and config, the flag feature gate that you set will override. But it's piecemeal. In the instance config case, do we still want that to be a piecemeal merge, or do we just want to replace the entire feature gates map with the like locally specified ones? It's a good question. I think we might want it piecemeal. Like tests kind of rely on setting it via dynamic config. Maybe it would break some tests.
I don't know what's a
But
piecemeal.
yeah. Oh, sorry. So like I have a map. I have two maps. Okay. The both have a schema that says your key can be A, B, or C. Okay, and you have some like say they're just Boolean values, like I'm turning A on or turning A off. Same for B and C. There's two possible strategies. One, if I'm merging these two maps, I can just replace the first map with the second map altogether. But in another case, I might have just set A true and B true in the respective maps. So like the first map has A true and the second map has B true. So my final map, my two options are either I replace it, so my final map is just B true, or I combine it, so my final map is A true and B true.
Okay, I think there are some ways to do this kind of strategy merge to handle these things.
Okay.
That's the goal of this thing. The end of the
Yeah.
day.
Okay. As long as like I just want to make sure we might need control over that, and we can decide that in a discussion on GitHub, on like the cap or something. But I just that's I'm sure that's a question that's going to come up. So I just wanted to kind of get ahead of it and make sure we know whether we're even able to do that with strategic.
Okay. So basically, we will get rid of the instance type. Uh, so every field will be on the shared now the kubelet configuration, for example. So
Yes.
when we want to specify some particular ones, we just keep the same configuration that like the host name override. We still duplicate this in the other file that will be merged in the
Right.
config.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, I think that's the best way. There we
Yeah,
go.
I think so too. It's simpler, it's fewer types. It's like especially when where Go doesn't have generics available, like it gets really crazy to try and like do this with multiple types. Um, and it's like if we implement it as like this, you know, merge just based on the YAML before you unmarshal, um, like it'll be universally applicable, so it's easy to adopt elsewhere as needed. I think it's just like a better situation, less work for everybody.
Cool. So I have like until the end of the week free, so I can bring a prototype for both kubelet and kubeprox, and then we try to extract these later
Cool,
if it works.
awesome. Yeah, so we'll just to summarize, we'll keep dash dash config and dash dash instance config as the way that you specify the layers, but both will take an object that's just kubelet configuration, um, and then you'll merge them and then continue with just kubelet configuration internally. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Cool. All right, dude. Awesome work.
Cool. Cool. Finally, we are getting going to somewhere with this.
Right. I know it's kind of like all this stuff is kind of a nightmare when you really get into it. Like it just gets, you think config is simple, right? You think it's like, oh, there's just like some options in a file. Like maybe I'll just like throw these two together, and then you like get into the tools you actually have and like the all the crazy edge cases that come up when you're trying to compose these things together. And then you realize like, oh yeah, that's like why this stuff is so complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
See ya, man.
All right, take care.
Bye bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.